young people. All right, here we go. Another case on exigency. And what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to keep a note of the questions that people ask in the previous ones, and then I'll answer them at the beginning. So in this one, somebody asked, in a consent search, does it matter if the cop sees something when you limit the consent and then he sees something? Yes, he can seize it. So what they're trying to ask is, if I give you permission, let's just say you can't search my car, but you can search my truck bed. If he didn't have access to the trunk bed, and now I gave him access to the trunk bed, and he looked in the back seat and saw a gun or saw something that looked like drugs, then he can go further, which is why it's probably better not to do it. But if we're on the side of the road and he already has access to the outside of my car, and I say, yeah, go ahead and search the trunk bed, I don't care because I know nothing's there, then let him search the trunk. I don't care. But remember, while he's searching the trunk, he can be asking you questions. He can be engaging in conversation. He can ask where you're going. And if he gets inconsistency or thinks you're lying, now he's developing probable cause. The more you talk and interact with cops, the more you give them ability to establish probable cause, guilt, etc. Which is why defendants shouldn't take the stand, because when you do, you give the government more information to twist your words, to imply you did something, to say you left something out, to find a mistake, now call you a liar. It just never works out good to talk to the cops. Another question that came up is, what happens if a cop puts his foot in the door so you can't close it? That's kind of a seizure. If I prevent you from doing something as government, I have exerted government authority and power, and now I lose the ability to say it was consent. I can't put my foot in the door and go, look, either you give me consent or I'm going to hold my foot here and we're going to get a warrant. That is called coercion. I can say, if you don't give us consent, I'm going to go apply for a warrant, and then I'm going to come back with a team and we're going to have to do this the hard way. I can say that. That's probably on the edge of threatening. Some judge may go, you know what? You threatened. I didn't like it. I'm throwing it out. Most won't. What I should say is, look, it's perfectly your right to refuse consent. But here's what I've got. Your daughter was arrested with drugs. She said that her boyfriend is in her room and he has drugs and guns in there that he's not supposed to have. That is enough for me to get a warrant. I would like to come in and search your daughter's room for the drugs and guns that she just told us was in there. If you allow this, we'll go in, we'll search the room, we can make this low key, and we'll leave. If you deny me, I have no choice but to secure the house, go get a warrant. It may take an hour or two, and then when I come back with a court order, if the judge signs the court order, then we'll search the entire house. It's up to you. I can say that, even that is a little implying, but that's more facts. That's exactly what would happen. So, again, if a cop does something that prevents you from leaving, he stops your movement, he restricts your privacy by saying you have no right to privacy, I'm coming in anyway. When he does those actions, you want them to be very clear that they were against your wishes and there was no confusion that you possibly maybe gave consent or didn't object, etc. Okay? What about police entering your home do welfare checks? Welfare checks are kind of one of those iffy things. If I think somebody's in danger or falls under exigency, I'm going in to protect public safety. Also, on a welfare check, normally it's from a family member or somebody that's familiar. So it's easy to corroborate what they're saying. I want you to go do a welfare check on Rick at his house. He lives here. He's a buddy of mine. He's got this. When you get there, here's the gate code, etc. Now, the cops are good on this welfare check because they've corroborated things. If I just say, hey man, I want you to go to a welfare check at this house and my cousin, I think he's sick, and hang up, that's not enough to justify a welfare check. That's enough to go do a knock and talk, but not a check. All right, let's get to this case here. U.S. versus Snipe. Ooh, we're going to talk about some sniping here. Yeah. Did exigency circumstances justify a warrantless entry into a home? Now, you can tell by the issue that cops entered a home without a warrant. You can just tell that without even reading further. Facts of the case. At 5 a.m., an hysterical male phoned the Fort Hall Police Department in Idaho for a non-emergency line. Now, why would somebody hysterical, call a non-emergency line? That would be my first question. If I got dispatched to a call that say hysterical, blah, blah, they called him non, I said, play back the recording and see if he said this or if you heard background noise. He called on the non-emergency. It's not recorded. That's a clue to me. Okay? An hysterical person screaming isn't going to dial a full non-emergency line. Most people don't even have a non-emergency line. Anyway, I digress. Fort Hall Police Department, Idaho, non-emergency line, and screamed, "Get the cops here now!" After the man gave his address, the phone line was disconnected. Okay, so to me, this sounds almost like a swatting call. This is bullshit, limited information. He didn't say why. He didn't say if he lived there. He didn't say if he was in danger. I mean, as a cop responding to this, I'm going, something doesn't smell right. 2 officers were dispatched to the call. Code 3. Woo! Lights and siren. Woo, woo, woo. All right, here we go. As they walked up to the house, so they responded code 3, endangering the public, and then they walked to the house. As they walked to the house, they noticed that the lights were on inside. Okay, that's a good observation. And the front door was ajar. That's a clue. Why would the front door be ajar at a house? What time was this? 5 a.m. Totality of circumstances. Non-emergency line, hysterical male, 5 a.m. You show up, lights are on, and the door's ajar. Those are all kind of... Now look, some people crack their door in the morning to let fresh air in. Some people come out for a smoke and leave the door. There's reasons why a door is jammed. That in and of itself is not enough to enter, for what I know right now. When one of the officers knocked on the door, it opened wider. This is an old trick by cops. I've done it. It's not illegal. If a door is cracked or not shut, and I knock and it opens, well, then I knock a little bit harder so it opens all the way. I'm not opening the door to violate the Constitution. I'm opening the door because I want to see what's coming around the corner, where I'm at, what the call is, what I can see in the room so I can prepare in case some dummy comes out, you know, with a gun or screaming, or somebody comes out bloody, or they try to hide, or a guy's carrying a body and he's running from one room to the other carrying a body. It's always nice for cops to have more information. So this right here, and somebody said I was a jackboot, and I caught myself lying about calling 911 on the other call. Look, we have made calls into drug houses to tickle a warrant, but we never made calls. I never was involved in making a call to justify a welfare check or an exigency situation. It's illegal. I didn't do illegal shit. I tried to abide by the law. I worked within the law, and I didn't do that. But there's idiots who watch me that just try to catch me up. And when you do thousands of videos, I'm gonna have some conflicting things, and it may sound, and I may get confused in the story a little bit or whatever. But look, I never made a call to justify ecstasy. I did make calls to tickle or to get somebody to run out, or to say, yo, man, the cops are here. You better get out now, and then have a guy jump out the window so we can chase him. That's different than making a call to get cops to be able to kick a door and enter. Okay? If you don't see the difference, well, I can't help that. Okay, both officers entered. When one officer opened the door, it opened wider and both officers entered. That's a problem. I don't think they should have entered. If they knocked, to me, they had no reason to believe there was an exigency. Now they entered. I'm not okay with this entry. I wouldn't enter. I would have stood at the door, gather information, listened, see if things corroborate a call. I don't hear anybody screaming. I walk the door. I don't hear anybody screaming. All I see is the lights on. Why do I need to enter if the call is somebody screaming hysterically? Okay. As they do this, they saw several people sitting around a kitchen table. Okay, we call that a clue. Maybe somebody called it in. Maybe there was an argument. What's going on? All of whom react to surprise. No shit. Because there was a large amount of drugs on the table. Oh, that could be a problem. So somebody wanted to set these guys up. Probably ex-girlfriend. Somebody got pissed off. Somebody got bad drugs. They wouldn't share some drugs. So they called it in. Okay, I'm okay with criminals calling in criminals. But I'm not sure the cops should have entered. Okay. Although the officers saw the drugs, they did not let on. So they acted like they didn't see the drugs because they probably covered it up and panicked. And, you know, people always think they're cool and cops are like stupid and won't catch it. Instead, they told the people about the frantic phone call and determined that no one needed help. Okay, I'm okay with this except the entry. They went back to the office and applied for a search warrant. The subsequent search warrant netted a firearm, an additional amount of drugs. As a result, Snipe was charged with possession of a firearm with an obliterated serial number, which means it was possession of a stolen weapon with the serial number removed. Snipe filed a motion, meaning his attorneys filed a motion for him, to suppress the evidence, claiming that the officers had insufficient reason to believe an emergency entry was necessary. When the court denied the motion, he pled guilty. So they denied the motion. I'm kind of agree with him that I don't think they did have reason to believe, but let's see what happens. Discussion. By way of background, there are actually 3 types of exigency. One is emergency aid, one is investigative emergencies, such as obstruction of exit, the other is caretaking, community caretaking. Although they all have certain requirements, an entry to render emergency aid or otherwise protect persons and property is so obviously justified that a warrantless entry will be permitted if the following circumstances existed. Okay, so basically they said if somebody needs help, cops can go and help. Although they have no duty to act, and when kids are being shot in a school and the cops do not enter to help, they're protected, and the court said they have no duty to act. But when they choose to enter because they feel safe because they're pussies and they just want to get in somebody's house and violate the Constitution, then it's okay. I don't agree with that. All right. Needs outweigh intrusiveness. The needs must always outweigh the intrusiveness. So was the need here, did it outweigh the intrusiveness? I say it didn't, but we'll see what the court said. Motivation. If the degree of proof that the emergency exists is less than probable cause, the officer's primary motivation for entering must have been to prevent and minimize harm, not to obtain evidence. So what the cops did here, and the reason why he's quoting this here, this is an attorney probably writing this, not to obtain evidence, is it was obvious the officers weren't trying to obtain evidence. If they were, they would have seized the drugs on the table, which they were clearly authorized to do. Maybe they didn't seize the drugs. If I was the judge, I would be questioned. Maybe the officers didn't seize the drugs because they knew they shouldn't have been in the damn house, and they thought they would lose it if they seized it. So they went back and tried to get a warrant, thinking that the judge signing a warrant would give them cover for their illegal entry. I would have probably suppressed this evidence if I was a judge. Actions reasonably necessary. The officer's action must have been reasonably necessary. Was it necessary for the officers to respond to a man screaming and enter a house when they weren't invited? I say no. If they were actually thought somebody was hurt or needed help, why didn't they run in? Why didn't they push their way through the door instead of knocking? To me, this is a very reasonable kind of way to look at things. If it was an emergency and the door was cracked and I was really going there to help somebody, I would have pushed the door open. If I'd have got out of my car and heard somebody, help me, help me, help me, I wouldn't have knocked on the door. That would have been exigency. The fact that the officer stopped and knocked and then entered, I have an issue with. I don't believe it was exigency. In Snipe, the defendant challenged the first requirement, claiming there was insufficient proof that emergency existed. The caller had not identified himself before the line was disconnected. I agree. The officer saw nothing before they entered to confirm that there was, in fact, an emergency. I agree. Although it was true that the caller had not identified himself, the court refused to rule that some verification or corroboration must always exist before officers may enter a residence and respond to a call that appears reliable. Why did it appear reliable? Because a guy called? See, the reason why the court, and you need to understand how the court thinks, the reason why the court doesn't want to say cops always need corroboration, because there's going to be times when a woman is getting her ass beat and she's on the phone and she's saying, help my husband, and the line goes dead. And now cops can't enter because we don't have corroboration. So everybody wants the law to be very clear and specific. Look, we have too many laws, and we have too many if, and, buts, and coconuts in the laws. So when people start claiming, man, the cops need to be able to, they can only enter with 1, 2, and 3. Well, the whole purpose was to give good cops, good public servants, give police who were supposed to be serving the community the ability to help people. That was the intent behind this law. But like all laws in government, it grows legs of its own, it goes in its own path. Cops figure out a way to manipulate it. The DAs figure out a way to manipulate it. The courts support the cops and the DAs. And then we have tyrannical over abuse, and it loses its intent. And that's when a court should come in and take it away. And I'm not sure they should take away exigency just yet. I do think they ought to hold cops accountable when it's not an emergency. Such a requirement, said the court, would dramatically slow emergency response time. Who cares if it slows time? A lot of things slows time. See, the government wants you to depend on government, and they have to come and save you. And we always need more police and more money so we can have more police and more cars and more help. And then we always need more government so we can come help you. That's a government response here. Would dramatically slow emergency response and would therefore be odds with the purpose of the emergency doctrine. Well, the problem with the emergency doctrine is cops don't use it for an emergency. They use it to circumvent the Constitution, allowing police to respond to emergency situations in a timely manner. All right, so this court is obviously pro-government. Government needs all the power in the world to help and save everybody because government is good. I don't agree with that. Instead, as the court explained, the legality of the entry depends on whether the officers had reason to believe that. Now, this sounds like this judge is going to get into if and buts, coconuts, and going to be twisting words and be lawyer on me. He's going to be lawyering on me here. The officers had reason to believe that emergency existed. And here, said the court, there were at least 3 reasons that the officer reasonably believed. 1, the door to the house was ajar. I'm not sure that's a reason to believe. Well, in and of itself, it may not be, but maybe in totality. 2, although it was 5 a.m. and the lights in the house were on, and the operator had informed the officers that the caller was hysterical. So what? Anybody can act hysterical. While it is, of course, possible that a malicious caller, it's not only possible, it's damn likely in this day and age. While it is, of course, possible that a malicious caller could feign hysteria, the court ruled that the officers could consider the caller's apparent mental state as a circumstance supporting their decision to enter, said the court. We will not impose a duty of inquiry on the police to separate a true cry from help from a less deserving call. Okay, so I kind of agree with this statement or the intent of the statement. If we restrict cops too much to prevent this, then when somebody actually needs help, the cops won't act. You know what? I would rather them not act and someone who needs help not get it than allow the cops to abuse this and kick doors just because they say, oh, we had a hysteria call, 911. So the statement sounds good, but it's bullshit when police aren't held accountable. We will not impose a duty to inquire on police to separate a true cry from help, from a less deserving call, because the delay may cost lives, and that's what government is here for, to save your life, because you're too stupid and you're too weak and you're too ignorant to do it yourself. And we take away your right to have guns, and we take away your ability to protect yourself because we send you to prison if you do. And then you need us, and we need more police to save you, and we don't want to cost lives. Yeah, okay. Pack that shit up your butt with some sand. That could have been saved by an immediate response. You mean like the kids getting slaughtered by guys shooting, and then the courts ruled that the cop had no duty to go in? Is that what you're talking about, saving lives here? Miss Court, Judge, whoever you are? Consequently, the court ruled the officer's entry was justified because they had an objectable, reasonable bias to believe there was an immediate need to protect others from serious harm when they enter Snipe residence. I think this is a bad ruling. I would like to see a higher court overturn this. So I'm going to disagree with this. But this gives you, again, these cases should be demonstrating on how nothing is clear. And people that want to come here and run and tell you on the internet, the law says this and you're right and don't worry about it and you got to sue and you're going to sue and the car was right and the cops were wrong and the cops can't do that because if they do, they're violating the Constitution. The Constitution is free. Look, all that shit just, I'm sorry. Don't shoot the messenger. It just doesn't matter in this day and age. People have stopped holding our government accountable. Our politicians know they're not held accountable. Our judges know they're not held accountable. And police know they're not held accountable. And when you give power with no accountability, you get tyranny. Welcome to the United States of America. All right, we'll go to the next one. We'll see y'all next one.